Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Chris Cale from the rock and roll band Five Finger Death Punch here.
And I'm Craig Gass, the comedian, Family Guy, American Dad, King of Queens.
Nobody cares, Craig. We are performing stand-up comedy in Pittsburgh on September 19th and 20th at the brand new Comedy Bar. Get tickets at getgas.com.
The roast of Gene Simmons, the roast of Corey Taylor.
That's right, me, Chris Cale, and what's his name?
We're doing comedy in Pittsburgh. Come see the show.
Today on Beardo and Weirdo, we talk to Big Dave, who you know as Ozzy Osbourne's assistant from the Ozfest days. He talks about babysitting Ozzy's kids, and at the end of the episode, the greatest Lemmy story ever.
Shout out to Kentucky Moonshine.
Woo, baby! That'll change you as a human being. In all of your travels around the world, you end up meeting people that have really fascinating lives that you go, man, that guy's got some stories. And this is one of those people that the idea of doing a podcast and talking to the people that we know, that we come across, it's not just the people that everybody knows, but there's a lot of people that have interesting stories that are a part of these worlds that we dip in and out of. And metal fans, specifically Ozzy fans, know about Big Dave. Big Dave has been a very familiar face at the Ozfest shows over the years. There was an Ozfest reality show that ran that you would see Big Dave in, and they would have competitions and drama that would happen. And Big Dave is here with us. And dude, when people meet you, what is the dumbest question people ask you when they go, "You're Big Dave"? What's the first dumbest question that you get?
I don't know. I don't really get like a dumb question about it. It's maybe just. Yeah, I don't really get like stupid questions, stupid people sometimes. But
There it is. He's going to be a good interview. Dave, nice to meet you over here. Craig told me all about you. I'm super excited to hear some of these stories. Chris Cale over here.
Chris Cale.
Co-hosting today.
Five Finger Death Punch over here. And I just think of there's moments we have in our lives that are very surreal because as a kid, we get introduced to somebody's art that we love. And if we're lucky enough to meet the person, you go back to that discovery you had when you were a kid. It's even crazier when you actually become a part of that person's life and they become a part of your life. So do you remember what age you were when you first discovered Ozzy Osbourne?
I think I was like about 11 or 12. So I was born in 71.
And were you scared first time you saw him?
No, I wasn't scared. It was everybody else was scared that I had the albums, and there was like once you had like an Ozzy album and like a Motley Crue album, and there was like too many pentagrams going on at that point,
So, and you were 11, you said?
Yeah, I was like 11 or 12 years old.
And I'm just because I've met you many times. Were you already 6 feet tall at 11 years old?
No, actually, I grew like 4 or 5 inches after high school, so it was weird.
After high school?
Yeah, so like when I went back to like class reunions and stuff, everybody's like, "Who's that tall dude?" And they're like, "Oh, that's that crazy dude Dave that used to whistle."
So that's Little Dave.
Little Dave.
Little Dave, now
Little
Big Dave.
From high school.
I was medium Dave back then.
Wow. So how old were you when you actually saw Ozzy live?
I probably didn't see him until like 92, something like that, I would say. Like his first final tour, So
with Inez and Zach and was that Castillo on drums or was that Mike Borden?
Yeah, it was Castillo. Yeah. No, Castillo.
It was Castillo.
Yeah, the No More Tours tour.
And how do you find yourself ending up in that orbit with Ozzy and Sharon?
Okay, so I'll give like a quick history of me. So I worked for a limousine company washing limos. They didn't have a guy to drive Robert Cray. I don't know if you know Robert Cray.
Of course, yeah. Robert Cray, the blues.
So they were like, "Hey, I was like 18 years old. You're not supposed to be driving till you're 25 for insurance reasons." They're like, "Hey, we need somebody to drive." So they threw me in a car with Robert Cray.
What city is this in?
New York City.
In New York City, okay.
Come on, you can't hear that accent, Craig?
I know, but I just wanted
Come
to
on.
clarify. I hear the accent. I get it.
Coffee. Come on. So from that day on, they kept giving me jobs. And then one day through the Rolly fax machine, like I came in, it was, there was like, oh, pick up Ozzy at Teterboro Airport. This was 96.
Whoa.
So I was like, well, that's my job. So then I picked him up. And then we got along, and then every time they came in, they would be like, "Hey, we want Dave, we want Dave." So then I'd get to drive him all the time, and they would come in. That was like at the time when he was in. They didn't let him into Lollapalooza, or like Sharon asked Lollapalooza.
Yeah.
So that was when kind of the Ozfest was just like the idea and everything was just starting to form. So.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know the history, Sharon has said that when Ozzy was not taken seriously, as when it was offered up, hey, would you like to have Ozzy on Lollapalooza? And they kind of looked down their nose at her and at Ozzy, that they thought, you know what, fuck this, we'll start our own festival. Yeah. And that's the folklore about the history of Ozfest. Teterboro Airport, where you pick them up, isn't that a strictly private airport?
Yes.
Okay.
And as a quick side note, I was there the day that I drove. So Ozzy he would go to Teterboro Airport and take his plane and fly within 2 hours to do a show, get on a plane and come back. And he'd hub out of New York for like 2 or 3 weeks. So he wouldn't have to keep, traveling to different hotels and stuff. So the night that Tupac was shot, he actually came to the airport early and was yelling at everybody in the thing to get his plane. So I was standing there and I was like, what's with all these dudes? And they're like, oh, that's Tupac's people. And they're like, because the Teterboro it's basically like a parking garage. Like the people that work there, they don't have any clue like with your pilots and stuff. So they came there like, oh, we want our pilots and everything. And they were yelling at everybody. So they kind of pissed everybody off. And then I came back later on to pick Ozzy up at night. And they're like, oh, did you hear what happened? I was like, no. They're like, oh yeah, Tupac got shot. And I was like, oh, that's so it was kind of weird.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the description of that lifestyle of staying in one place so you can stay at the same hotel for a couple of weeks and then flying out to do gigs. That's what Mr. Big Shot here next to me in the studio gets to do. Chris Kale.
It really is all it's cracked up to be. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bathory. Thank you, sir.
I'm just curious because I do know a story that Jim Brewer told one night about being on a plane with Ozzy and the kids. And I want to say it was out of Teterboro. Do you remember Brewer being on a flight once with Ozzy?
He might have been. I'm not sure. He always kind of pops up here and there, So it's a Jim Brewer blur as to which of the actual things, because he seems like he's at everything.
Yeah, at all the shows. You're describing. I didn't realize this started as a limo driver gig, because this sounds like Howard Stern, who I work for again now. His security guy, Ronnie the limo driver, was a limo driver who Howard describes as kind of annoying back in the day, and then he was like, you know what? You can help me do security, and it's a running joke because Ronnie's like 4 feet tall, and there's all the jokes about like in his driver's license photo you can actually see his feet, because he's so short and stuff. But it is an interesting story that his security guy / limo driver became a part of his life. I had no idea. In my mind, I guess I had assumed that Dave had roadied for other artists, which is how most people work their way into working, with Ozzy. Because Ozzy famously had another assistant, Dennis. Was his last name Dennis?
Yeah.
And that was his assistant for years. The story was that guy was a fan. He was an Ozzy fan, and then he became. Isn't that the story behind that guy? Was that he was?
Yeah, he was like a fan, and he would follow him around, and then eventually they were like, "Hey, we'll give you a job if you're going to be around all the time." So
wow. And so you start out as a limo driver who regularly picks him up at Teterboro Airport, driving him to and from his flights. And
plus, and like in town, like they would be in New York so much. Like I would listen to Stern all the time. And like, what year were you doing? Like, when did you first come in?
I started working for Howard in 1995, doing celebrity phone calls, and then I started writing for the show in '98. I didn't start sitting next to Howard until 2001, and then now almost the entire show is on Zoom. So now it's, people work remotely and they do interviews, and then, Howard's got his studio, and then the guests will check in from Zoom. So
Yeah, no, it's been because I listened to you like a bunch of times when I remember driving around and stuff like that, and even in the early days with the kids and whatnot. So
With Ozzy's kids?
yeah, well, that's what the deal was. Like when I was like, they would come in and be like, "Hey, why don't you take the kids to like the Statue of Liberty and take them around town and bring them back?" So like I was just like, "Hey, dude." So I was like, and it wasn't like the typical like we never drove limos. It was always like the custom vans or like the passenger vans and stuff because Ozzy didn't really like limos. So that's how I got along with the kids. So I was like a punk. I was like, I was like, 30, going on about 30 or whatever. I had like shaved head and a devil lock and stuff. And I used to like back and the kids used to mess around with it and and stuff. And they was just like, but I would get along with them and stuff. So it was cool, So
Dave,
we kind of had that relationship.
I got a legit question. This is a legit question. You got these kids. Kids have their own mindset. You got a mom. The mom happens to be Sharon Osbourne, but she's a mother. She's got two teenage kids. I want you to take the children and take them down to see the Statue of Liberty.
Well, this time they're like 9 and 10.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say when the door closes, are the kids like, we want weed? Get us some weed.
I mean, they are Ozzy's kids.
Yeah, they are Ozzy's kids. So
they say that for the TV show.
Yeah. So, wow, this is a crazy relationship you're developing with a family. You're driving the kids around. They obviously everyone
and the whole time I'm doing this, like my buddy had started the business. He like, not to have a big story, but he had broken away from the other company and he started his own company. So we were trying to like maintain a company while I would like be driving Ozzy and stuff because Ozzy would be in about 4 or 5 months out of the year.
Okay.
But I also drove like I drove Nirvana for the Unplugged. Like I drove.
Oh, wow.
Like, week and a half they were there. And it's like basically if somebody had an instrument in their hand, I probably drove them at some point. So
wow. So you obviously get to know how Ozzy likes to operate. So right away, what do you start to notice about Ozzy's personality? About how is he someone that shies away? Is he kind of an introvert? Or what do you learn about his personality right away that you start?
He jumped in the van and he was just like he knew me forever or something. And he was just like, oh, like, where's like this place where you can get these, like, he described some sort of thing that he used to eat in the 80s when he came here. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I think that's no longer here. But, he would just like talk to you like normal. He's just like a normal dude. Like he would just talk to people like, not like he's some sort of like hierarchy or anything. So he came in the van and he was like, oh, did you hear about like something, whatever happened in the news? He's always like on the news tip. So he'd always like, oh, did you hear what happened in the news? He'd talk about that. He'd be like, oh, that's fucked up and stuff. So yeah, he was cool right off the bat. So that's why they were like, hey, you're cool, Tom. Like, we're going to tell him that we want you, to drive us around. So
that's all the stories that you hear about him is everybody talks about how disarming he was and that, and all the stories he comes across as just being very blue collar and very average, like very, in terms of just being just a conversationalist. He just liked, very approachable and just enjoyed talking to strangers. And of course, him being Ozzy Osbourne, it really threw people because he was Ozzy Osbourne. And is there like a learning curve for you to let go of the fact that this is Ozzy Osbourne? And because even all the years that I spent with Howard Stern, I got used to him being around him. And then other people,
hey, Howard,
yeah, and then other people would, I don't know how they would get into the studio, but they would know somebody who knew somebody, and they would get to come in and say hello to Howard, and that person that would come from the outside would freak out so hard that I would be reminded of like, man, this guy is famous. Mm-hmm. Like, wow. Like, did it take you a while to adjust to Ozzy, and then did you have that same kind of thing of being reminded the way? Through other people's eyes?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty low key about that stuff anyway, but he was like, once you just got immersed in the whole scene, it was like, you didn't even have time to think about if it was Ozzy or whatever anymore. You were just like, it was just like consuming, you know what I mean? Like, then that went from like being a kid in Queens to like, they were like, hey, do you want to like pack up your stuff and come move out to the house and live with us and, hang out the house for like a couple months and then you get an apartment or something. And I was like, what?
Wow.
I was like, like you meet all these people all over the world and stuff. I was like, why are you asking me to do it? It's like, first of all, you put up with a lot of shit for the kids when they come in. You know, they fuck with your hair and they fuck with your, and then and this will give you the timing of it. They're like, well, you know, we've been here and you've seen a lot going on in the van, and you've seen a lot, and we haven't seen anything in the Inquirer or the weekly, you know, the weekly news report or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you know, we trust you, and like, you know, the kids like you, so why don't you come out and work on Ozfest? And that's originally what it's supposed to be. I was just supposed to watch the kids on Ozfest, and then halfway through Ozfest, they were like, hey, you want to come live at the house? And then I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Wow. So which Ozfest was your first Ozfest that you worked on?
2000.
2000. Okay. I remember the first Ozfest I went to was at PNC Bank Arts Center, 98. And I remember arriving into the parking lot and seeing a guy. I always remember that first Ozfest, face down in his own vomit. And I had to double check the time. I was like, it's 12 o'clock, dude. It's 12 o'clock. Yeah. And that dude is face down in his own vomit. What? Like,
he was ready to go by main stage, I bet. So.
That's right. Yeah. Little hair of the dog at 6 p.m. Let's go.
Yeah.
Had you been to any previous Ozfests prior to the first one you worked on?
No, because I would have to drive Ozzy. I mean, I went to him, but I would be driving Ozzy to him. Okay. So they would be like, all right, they're like, they would drop him off, and they would be like, all right, come back at like 11 o'clock, and I would just hang out at the show. So, you know,
okay.
So I was able to go to the show, but not go to the show.
Right, right. You're in the loading dock. You're ready to go when he's ready to go. And I'm just curious, like, is his schedule that when he gets off stage, he wants to go straight in the car and go, or does he stay for a little bit before and let the traffic get out?
That's like a kind of a show call. It's either is he trying to make a plane time, or is he trying to do a runner and get out of there before the ham? I mean, most of the times they were runners.
Okay.
You know, sometimes he'd stay there, and then, you know, especially like someplace like the PNC, you know, you get like stuck in there for a while, you know.
How early into your limo driving career is it that you meet Ozzy? Had you been driving for a few years?
Since like 90, like 89, 90. That's when I kind of started driving.
Okay. And then you met him in would you say it was mid-90s?
Yeah, 96, when he was doing the Theater of Madness.
Theater of Madness tour. Okay.
Yeah, the comeback. He was playing like some of the smaller, like the 3,000 places when he did that.
Okay. So what are the first jobs that you are given on Ozfest when they say, all right, you're gonna work on the tour? This is what your job is.
Yeah. So they gave me the kids. So they're like, look, the main thing is you have to have the kids back here, because when we did like the Ozfest and stuff, and we had buses, then we were doing runners. You know, that was always like pretty much a definite runner unless something had to be done. So I had to have the kids on the bus for the police escort, because at that point it was like the police escort. It wasn't even just a runner, you know. So,
and by runner, do you mean that you have to leave immediately after the show? Is that what you mean by runner?
Yeah, like they came off the stage and they ran to the buses.
Gotcha.
Like that type of thing.
Gotcha.
So like the kids, like Jackie Kelly, you know, the first day, it was West Palm. It was like down in Florida, some hot, steamy place too. I think it was West Palm. And then so the two kids, I see them like talking and conspiring to each other. And they just walk opposite ways. So then I'm like, I got to figure out like which one to watch or whatever. So it's kind of like, you know, you've started figuring out where they hung out and what they did. But then it was like, you know, a bunch of times like running with them as the bus is like coming up the ramp to go leave, and then they have to stop and get them on, and then the tour manager like, Dave, you gotta get these fucking kids on the bus. I'm like, what do you want me to do? I go, fucking one's going that way, one's going this way. But, you know, so eventually, you know, they learned, and then they would bring their friends. So then it's the two of them, and then there's 6 friends.
Oh, wow.
So then I'm running and scrambling with that. I had like the first couple of days, I was like, my legs were chafed and they were glowing. I was like, holy shit, is this how this summer's gonna be? I was like, you know.
So
then I figured it out. I figured out the formula, you know, after a while, what to do. So
after the kids start getting to that age where their friends start joining them on tour, is that when you start getting pulled in different directions by the kids to say, hey, don't tell mom? I mean, listen,
they don't even say that. It was just like it was just like a hoping you don't tell mom or whatever and stuff like that. And then The only convenience is like you would be able to find them on certain buses. Like, Jack would always be on. Jack and Kelly always like to hang out with the hate breed guys and stuff like that. And so that was getting easier as to where they would go.
Yeah.
But then, then they decided to get them, they bought them like a Hummer golf cart that was like street legal. So then all of a sudden this thing is like barreling through over the backstage and stuff, blowing away the other golf carts. And, then the cops are getting mad at it and stuff, and they're blaring the radio. And, so it's just like, typical. I would have done if I was 12 years old with a Hummer.
And not only that, but Jack is such a fan of music. He's telling his mom and dad, hey, check out these bands. We had John Dolmayan on 3 weeks ago, and Dolmayan was talking about how Jack was a fan of System of a Down and would tell his mom and dad, and then, of course, watch the shows. And, now I'm thinking about what Dave is saying, that you would find the kids on this band's bus or this band's bus. I remember going to these Ozfest shows, and I remember Limp Bizkit in particular, they had a big toilet bowl on the stage. And I remember them inviting Jack to be in the toilet bowl, which you could walk up. You could walk up through the toilet bowl up to the top of the rim.
Yep.
And Jack was getting pulled in every direction from all these bands that, they might not be able to talk to Ozzy and get access to Ozzy, but Jack was accessible. Jack was always around the loading dock and around the side of the stage for all the sets. So
yeah,
and you start to notice that too, don't you, Dave? That the bands are like, hey, Jack, come listen to our new album, or
Yeah, there was like Kelly usually would have Kelly and her friends would have the bands that they liked the kids in, they liked the boys in, whatever was on the second stage.
Right.
It was some of them, and then Jack would have his friends that he had like the System guys or something like that, and then there would be always this is the newer band. That they're hanging out with this year or something like that. There'd always be the kind of new guys hanging out for the summer, and sometimes they'd make it past the summer, and they'd still be friends. And sometimes it's just a summer love,
So it wasn't even after one full Ozfest that you get the invitation to come just live at the house.
Yeah. There was just the middle of Sharon had left for a couple weeks. And then everybody's like, dude, you're going to LA. And oh, you're going to LA. And then I was like, hey, is there some sort of something we have to do out there? And then they were like, Sharon's like, oh no, I forgot to tell you. I forgot to ask you, do you want to come move out to Beverly Hills, out to the house there? And stuff.
What the fuck is this life?
And that's how they kind of, everything was her, when they did the Ozfest, and they were they walked in, they're like, oh, they need you to go into production. And I was oh, they want you to be the MC. I was like, what is that? I've never MC. What do they want me to do? And this one lady, Jane Holman, she was a Kiss lighting, the lighting technician in 77, 78. And she's just she was still working with us at the time. She's like, I don't know, Dave. She's like, just grab the mic and say fuck as many times as you can. Now, all day was 9:30 in the morning until I would do one of the first band or two on the boom stage. So I was like, I can do that. I can do whatever I want, but I can make that happen. You know
what is so funny is before we get Dave in, I'm digging up all the stuff because I'm trying to jog my memory on Dave, and I'm finding videos of Dave, and I found a video of him introducing a band. And the introduction is, all right, you fucking, dude, these motherfuckers are fucking. And I was like, I remember watching the video and going, man, how many fuck can you clock on this intro? And I was like, when do we get to the please welcome?
So you're saying he went full New York?
He took that advice and he ran with it.
I love it.
And I'm curious, the MC duties, is that also the first Ozfest that you were a part of? You're already being asked to MC, or is it the next Ozfest?
No, it was, I had done a couple, and then once, I'm trying to think, it was 04 maybe, or 05, I think it was, because I think it was after the TV show, after I had the Battle for Ozfest, and I think that's when they had made me the MC.
Right. Now, the Battle for Ozfest is the show that ends up on MTV.
Yeah.
Ozfest is such a giant brand at that point, having going 6-7 years at that point around the world. And now they're doing reality TV based on the Ozfest brand, and Dave is the host. How many seasons did that last?
We did one season, because originally we were supposed to be when they had, I don't know if you guys remember they used to have the Sunday Stew on MTV, and it was like Jackass and like all those type of shows.
Right.
So we were supposed to be in that, and some fucking brilliant fucking mind over at MTV was like, you know what? Let's put this show after the Real World, because that's the fucking lead-in audience for the Battle for Ozfest.
Right.
I was like, the death was on the wall for fucking metal once our lead-in was the Real World, you know?
Wow. Oh my God. So,
like, what happened to Jackass? I said, now we just got Jackasses fucking leading us in.
ooh, I know this feeling very clearly.
I was gonna say, I'm sure you've had that feeling, you know.
Oh, dude, I told the story recently about being at the Comedy Store. I got an 11:30 spot. I walk in at 11, and Chris Rock is on stage. Chris Rock's on stage. The place is going crazy, and one of the managers comes over and goes, "Hey, Chris, he might do 10 minutes. He might do an hour and a half. We're not sure. But as soon as he raps, he knows to say, 'That's it for me. Please welcome Craig Gass.'" And I was like, "Oh, that is the worst ending to a Chris Rock show I've ever heard in my life. Nobody wants that." So yeah, I get it. And I just know at that point, I'm tripping out as a fan who's been going to Ozfest shows. I recognize this guy, Dave. He's this nice guy from New York that I see all the time. He's a Jets fan. So there's some, you're still a Jets fan, by the way?
Yes, we'll always be a Jets fan.
Okay.
You know?
And so I go, oh my God, Big Dave's on TV and he's hosting this show. And do you have, all right, let's do it this way? Or are they telling you this is how the show's going to go? Like, how much input? Do you just kind of like, similar to your relationship with Ozzy, just go, all right, yeah, whatever, let's just do it?
So no, a typical MTV. So first I wasn't going to be on it. So they were going to Ozzy and Sharon, and they were telling them that, you know, they were going to get a different host or whatever. This guy's never been on TV and this and that. And then they were started to bringing up the fucking Jesse Camp guy.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Jesse.
And I was like, dude,
Love Jesse.
I went to that, and since I knew it was the same people that were doing the TV show at the house, the Osbournes. So it was like I knew all the same people. And I was like, do you think Ozzy is gonna fucking talk to Jesse Camp like he talks to me? I was like, you better talk to your fucking bosses over there. I said, if not me, just get somebody else, not him. You know, I said that's ridiculous. So eventually it worked out where Sharon just told them to hire me. And then they were grinding me for money. And then I was like, Sharon, they're grinding me about money. And she's like, just take him, just get what you need. And, you know, I was like, all right, cool. So then they were like, oh, well, if you need that amount, then, and that amount was like, they wanted to pay me less than going on my tour rate. I was like, hey, you have to pay me at least my tour rate, you know? And then they were like, well, you know, maybe, you know, they tried to pull we'll talk to Jesse and see. I was like, all right, go talk to Jesse. I said, to be honest, I'm not even sure if I want to do it because I have to take care of Ozzy. And then they were like, then they were like, oh no, then the next day they were like, oh yeah, we talked. Sharon just said to hire you. I was like, you know, so I was like, oh, I said, so she said to hire me. You guys don't really want to hire me, you know?
Dave,
but all the guys that I worked with, they were cool and they wanted to work with. It was just like the higher ups that nobody ever saw were like, kind of like, you know, trying to play chess or something.
Dude,
you know,
you leaned into something that most people don't have the courage to do, which is step up for yourself for that paycheck. And that is and we talk about this all the time, comedians, musicians, when you first start to step into a position where you know there's a lot more money involved, you don't know, number one, what am I supposed to get? I don't know how much should I ask for? I don't know what the going rate is for what I'm doing here. And number two, you start to ask and they go, this is what you're going to get. You're going to like it. And this is going to be exposure. And you go, okay. And you're afraid to step up.
Oh, they love that. The MTV loves that exposure.
Exposure.
You know, you're gonna do this, and that's like going to springboard you into like the other thing. And, you know.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. My first attempt at Gene Simmons' Family Jewels, the producers said, I remember they said, would you be interested in doing the show? I said, yes. And then I got a phone call from a travel coordinator saying, okay, what city are we flying you out from? And I said, oh, well, I'm sorry. I don't even realize we're getting that far ahead of ourselves because I don't even know what I'm getting paid for this. And the travel lady said, oh, you're not getting paid. And I go, what? You're the travel lady. How do you?
You're not getting paid.
Yeah. And I go, what? How do you know I'm not getting paid? And she goes, oh, well, you're not. And I go, oh, well, if I'm not getting paid, then I'm not going to do the show. And she said, you're not going to do the show. And I said, well, you just said I'm not getting paid. I'm not. And then she said, well, someone's going to call you. And then the next call was this awkward, all right, Craig, if there was a miracle that happened and we were able to find some money, how much would it take to put you on a TV show? And I said, if our starting point is 0, I feel uncomfortable asking for $1. So I would rather put that back in your court. So
can I get minimum? Like, can I get union minimum or something?
Yeah, exactly. So for Dave, I mean, Dave's also lucky. He's got Sharon in his corner going, you know what?
It wasn't like, I had like 3 balls because it was like mine. And then I had Sharon with, I wasn't, total like the, hey, whatever. I knew it was like, when I went in there, I knew like, she was like, the guy's not going to be on the show. So she's like, just take him for whatever you need to take him for.
Wow. So the TV show starts and you're locked in.
Right. And then they actually did not approve the show until 6 weeks before we went out on tour. So we had like no pre-production. So like most of these shows have like 3 months pre-production.
Yeah.
Ours was kind of like on the fly. So basically, as we did it and as things happened, we kind of came up with scripts and came up with stuff and came up and figured out things to do as they were like started unfolding. Like, we loved it when somebody messed up. Like, oh, dude, the kid's in the parking lot and he's pretending to be the Slipknot like clown and he's signing autographs. All right, we can like fuck with him now, And so we would just like hope for shit to like that to happen. So we'd have like the next episode or 2.
So, and when you start to get notes like, okay, we're 6 weeks out and we're going to be filming, does that give you anxiety because you're like, I got a job to do? And now you're telling me we're going to have to separate time every day to film?
No, because I was like pulled out. Like I had to do the TV show. Like I didn't really like do Ozzy. Like I was doing the TV show and then I was like coordinating with our show. And then like when Ozzy had to do stuff on the show. Because then, like a lot of times, they would after the show, Ozzy would have to shower and then go do like, the chair, like who's getting tossed off this week meeting,
Oh, wow. So okay, so your role
about that.
Okay, so your role has changed, so you don't have to worry about that.
Just for that year. So it was like and they were flying, so it was like basically he was coming in and out and stuff like that, and there was like a different situation, like there was the other assistant and stuff like that. So
okay,
that was.
It is pretty cool that you actually had organic moments happening on the show, like a guy pretending to be clown out in the parking lot. And you're like, all right, let's focus on this guy. Was there ever anything that you guys filmed that was gold, but you couldn't get a release for it to put it on the show?
Well, there was a couple contestants that we really wanted to put on, and they had like an awesome like intro video, like like to get hired. And then the guys like we're like, we want these people. He's like, we have to have them. It's like they got like great elements. The guy's like, I haven't seen this like psychological, papers for the kids at Columbine, but he goes, if I did, I bet you it would be this group right here. He goes, I would not be putting them on a show. So we're like, damn. I was like, what if we just take the one person right there? He goes, that's the worst one.
Oh my God. So after
we did like a band search where when we did the show, we did it at the Palladium in LA. So we had the whole band, and then the premise was like they thought like the whole band was going to play, it was going to be battle of bands, and we ended up just taking one member from each band, putting them on the bus with me, and then we basically fucked with them for like 6-7 weeks.
Oh, that's amazing. And then when that starts to air, I think you were already. People knew when they would go to an Ozfest show and they'd go backstage at an Ozfest show, it's like, oh, that's Big Dave. So you were already starting to get recognized. Did you notice a change, like a shift after the TV show starts airing?
Yeah, once that, nobody really knew me unless, like I was with Ozzy or something, I'd say Dave. But now once that show came out, then I was like in Walmart, when I lived in Vegas and stuff with my mom, and like, somebody came up to us, I remember they're like, yo, you should have fucking slapped that motherfucker in the head last night. Shit like that. Like mom, my mom was like, what is he talking about? Where were you? I was talking about the show, mom, and stuff like that. So we'd get shit like that. And then I compared it to like, I was like, so when people started coming up to me, I remember it reminded me like when I used to take Ozzy over to Bristol Farms in LA. That's like the the Whole Foods on steroids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's so I would go there, like Ozzy's like, let's go to Bristol Farms. Really? Like you just want to go shopping? Yeah. So I was like, so we could walk around with the paparazzi and stuff. And these old ladies came up to Ozzy at the while he was shopping, and they're like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm just shopping. Then I got a show tonight. And they're like, what do you mean you have a show tonight? He's like, yeah, I'm playing a concert. And they just knew him from the TV show. They didn't even really know that he like played concerts or anything. So there was like a bunch of people that they're like, oh, what do you mean? He's like Ozzy playing a show, you know?
I was going to ask about that too. Like, what was that dynamic pre the Osbournes versus post the Osbournes? Like, how did the fan interaction change? Did you see the demographics change when that happened?
Well, I'll explain it as it would be. There used to be 1 or 2 people outside the hotel, and then all of a sudden there's like 40, 50 people outside the hotel.
Whoa, really?
So what you're saying is I need to get a reality show to really blow up for myself.
Well, I don't know. Reality shows played out. I don't know what we're going to do now. You know, like everybody has a reality show now.
That's
I
true.
mean, they gave me a reality show. So I think that's when reality shows jumped the shark. When they
hey, everybody's got podcasts too, and that didn't stop me.
Yeah.
True. You got to start off with the podcast, and then, then you take it on tour, right? That's the thing. Now you can do the podcast live, so.
Dave does bring up a good point, though, about the reality shows changing the demographics, because anyone who would recognize me specifically from that reality show that Gene Simmons had, the Gene Simmons Family Jewels, it would be people that were clearly not Kiss fans. Mm-hmm. Oh, he's such a nice guy. I loved watching him with his family, and it opened up a totally different audience for Gene that didn't know anything about his music, and that was bizarre. But those stories that I hear from all of our friends who are on all those Ozfest tours over the years, it just sounds like the ultimate summer camp. And even when you have a job to do, is there a part of the evening that you can carve out for yourself where you can just sit down, have some beers, and hang out with your friends on the tour? Or is it?
Well, it got to a point there was so I had different stages where in the beginning I was watching the kids, for the first 2 years. And then Sharon's like, you've done your penance. You can go, you can go help with the band. You can be the band assistant.
Okay.
So then I was the band assistant for a while. So I got to I drove in 2005 when Sabbath was on. So I was driving the entire Sabbath to and from the stage on a golf cart every night,
Wow.
So I was I thought that was going to be awesome until, later on everything else with Sabbath happening. But,
right.
And then, so I do that. And then they had the tour manager, he had passed away. So his son came on, and then that's when the VIP program started. So my buddy and I, we went to Sharon, we were like, Gene Simmons, they're Kiss. They're doing these meet and greet things. They're people are paying a bunch of money and stuff. So what we did was we did the first meet and greet. I think it was probably might have been 04, 05.
Okay.
10 people. They paid $1,000, and it went to the Sharon's Colon Cancer Foundation, and they got meet and greet with Ozzy, and then they had a crew meal, and they had a crew meal with me, and it was only 10 people, and then. We did that for a year or two. So then I would kind of just facilitate that, and I wouldn't really have to mess around with Ozzy too much. And then that's when Live Nation was like, VIP package. And then all of a sudden it was okay, there's going to be the Ozzy meet and greet, and then we're gonna have tours. So I was I would give 6, 7 tours a day of people bringing 20 people up on stage.
Wow.
Take photos and stuff and tell stories and. Do kind of stuff like that. So then when I was doing that, at that point, when the second stage closed at 6, 7 o'clock at night, my job would kind of be done. So I would go and I'd be able to shower and watch the rest of the show, eat and do whatever I want, because the bus drivers didn't come back till 2 a.m. So there was that period from 6 to 2 where all the second stage bands, or most of them, were hanging out barbecuing, and then our bus would be down there because we were not allowed to be up there the main stage. We were the Misfits bus.
Oh,
so
that's hilarious.
They put all all the people that didn't have a huge crew, a 10-person lighting crew. So it was us and me and the merch guy and then this other guy. So it's just we're on the bus with I got the 50-year-old merch guy, 60-year-old merch guy at the time. But it was funny. It was everybody gelled and everybody got along, and it was fun. And and stuff like that. And, so.
I remember a lot of barbecues happening out by the buses, some occasional like campfires over by buses. It definitely had a summer camp feel to it. But the stories, I'm curious if I tell you, and it's
by the way, as a side note, I do know the Inez story. I was there that night.
with the souvenir that ended up being part of the laminate that Sharon had to say, stop it, get that thing out of here.
Another teaser for future episodes.
I joked about that to him with the when I saw him at the rehearsals for Back to the Beginning. I was like, hey, remember that Ozfest where you had that thing? And he's like, oh shit, yeah.
It's one of his favorite stories to tell me. He's always bringing it up. Like whenever I say, I'm going to be hanging out with so-and-so this weekend. He goes, oh, ask them if they remember about the party and blah, blah. But there's one story about, if I tell you the words SWAT team surrounding a Applebee's, do you know who I'm talking about?
I'm not sure if I do. I might not have been there for that incident.
Okay. That's another story. But hanging out in those Ozfests, do you have any favorite memories of hanging out with the artists that you became friends with that were part of Ozfest?
It was just cool. Just like the way the barbecues went down, it was like usually nobody fought. There wasn't any issues or anything, but I'll actually sell a Brent story that we have for Mastodon. So there was one time where we got there about 9 a.m. and he had come out of he was over at the Porter Sands and he was like kind of beating up the Porter Sands. And the strange thing is he was totally naked while he was doing it.
Oh, wow. All right.
So he was like, and they're like, oh, he's on mushrooms and stuff. So, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, but he'll be all right. And then like a half hour later, 45 minutes later, he's like on his bike, like riding around naked and stuff. And so then our production guy was like, yeah, you can't really, they're not really going to play today, and stuff. And, so they're kind of like, you guys got to go and stuff. He also, once he was beating up the Porter Sand, instead of using the Porter Sand, he went like to the bathroom outside the Porter Sand. So he just like crouched down and they're like, all right, that's the final straw, bro.
Right.
So they had gone and they were gone for like a couple hours and they're like, look, we got him. He drank a bunch of tequila and stuff, and he's really sobered up. So he's ready to come back and play the show. We're like, yeah, I don't think so. I was like, let's just go to the next city. Let's just keep this on for the next city.
You know what? And I don't know if you're the guy I'm thinking of. Were you ever put in a position to block drugs from getting to Ozzy?
By the time I got there, they were so on a block level. Like it wasn't really like where they're around, it wasn't like that scene was like more of like the 80s and, 90s and stuff. Like when I was there he was already like kind of going into rehabs and stuff like that. Right. He had more of a booze problem at that point, like, as far as instead of like drugs.
And I brought this up a couple of times, but were you ever getting mixed messages from the mom versus the kids who would say, hey, do this. Well, just do this. Well, but no, we want you to do this. Like,
you got to have a fine line of like when you're babysitting, like what to tell, what not to tell, what's so bad, what's not that bad. What does she really know? Does she really need to know this? Like, so you kind of gain their respect where it's not like everything's being told on them, where it's like, well, you pick and choose what needs to be told, So, but, and there was always, they were kids in Hollywood, so there was always something going on with them, so.
True. And it's it does earn the trust to let them know, like, I have my own hard lines that I just can't cross with you, but I'll be your friend, but you just can't.
Right. They're like, they know I'm like, hey, like, this is, if you're going to do it right in front of me, then I'm going to have to say something. If so.
Right.
But they were always cool. Like we had they both yelled the holy hell at me and called me names and stuff like that. But it was, in the end, it was, in the end, they were just kids. But there was always respect. Nothing ever lasted long. It was always the next day. I was like, oh, I said, cocksucker. I said, New York cocksucker wants to know if you want breakfast. And they're like, all right, make some beans and toast. So like, all right, there you go. So.
How early do you become aware of the concepts for doing a final show? How far in advance are you aware of it? And by the way, are you still since Ozzy wasn't touring for so many years, are you still working with the family during those down years?
Yeah, I was always like going out to do something at the house or like with the storage. Like when they had they set up in Birmingham, there's at the museum and in the town there, they had we went to the warehouse where Ozzy keeps like all of his gold records and Grammys and stage clothes and stuff like that. So we went and we helped them like curate for an installation inside of the Birmingham Museum. It's called like Working Class Hero. So that's like actually in the museum, and they have like a display there. It's actually so successful that they've held it over. So
I have to believe with all the friends that you've made in the industry over the years, there has to be an item that you have helped an artist get as a souvenir. Like, I know you're a huge Ozzy fan and you are, someone who deserves this artifact, whatever it is. Is there any one artifact that you've been able to facilitate changing hands from Ozzy's camp to somebody else that stands out?
There's nothing really, nothing where like we give something away. Like that would be like a Make-A-Wish thing where like, oh, they gave him like some posters. But as far as like some sort of like holy grail item or something like that, they kind of tend to, we have all that item. Like he has all his like stage clothes. But I will say this, I have two good stories about stuff being given away or stuff being retrieved back. So we had this Russian guy that would do the VIP, the meet and greets and stuff.
In other words, he would pay multiple times to keep coming backstage.
Yeah, like literally, like this guy would do it every year, like 5 or 6 different spots in a year, like flying over Russia, and like he would come. So then Ozzy's like, "Fuck, bro." He goes, "How much is this costing you?" And he's like, "Oh, it doesn't matter what it costs me." And like Ozzy literally reached into his fucking wardrobe case and gave him like a stage shirt with all the like, it was like a fucking, priceless, but he probably had to pay like $2-3 grand for it, to get paid. And he just hands it to the guy, and this fucking guy loses his shit. He starts crying and stuff. And Ozzy's like, "Put it on. Put it on." The guy's like, "Oh," it's Ozzy's helping the guy take his shirt off, and then Ozzy's putting it on him. He's like, "Look, you fucking look great," and blah, blah, blah. So,
wow.
That was funny. And then another time, this was when Robert Trujillo was in Ozzy's band. And we were in Denver, and we were over at the Hard Rock. And we were at the bar, and it was like one of those days you get in the afternoon. So it's like noon. And I'm, looking at, and Robert looks up, and there's a Music Man bass up on the wall. And Trujillo's looking at it. He's like, "That was my first bass, and that's the one I'm on the cover of like Bass Player magazine with." He goes, "I don't think they ever paid me for that." And this is the time when Zach was drinking.
Oh boy.
So like, so we're sitting there, and Zach's like, he's like, "Robert, you think you didn't get paid for that thing?" And I was like, "Oh shit, here we go." I was like, and it's like, the one lady at the bar, Zach starts asking, he's like, "Hey, who put that guitar up there and this and that?" And like the next thing I know, the manager's out there. There's a ladder. We're getting up on the ladder, and I'm drilling this bass off of the wall. So we take the bass off the wall. I mean, the guy gave us the ladder. So I was like, "Hey, we need to see the serial number." And so when we turn it over, it was some like written down serial number, and all the Hard Rock stuff is supposed to have like a metal plate on it and shit.
Yeah.
So like Zach's like, "This guy put his fucking blood, sweat, and tears into this fucking thing, and you pay him." And the guy's like, "I don't know. They just sent from the warehouse." He goes, "I don't know." He's like, and the guy was like, I was like, "All right, well, hold on." I said, "We'll go down the street to the pawn shop.
Oh my God.
We'll get like a $200 guitar or something. We'll see what they got." I said, "We'll get it signed up, and then we'll put it back on the wall." I said, "How does that work?" Because I get it'll be signed, And the guy's like, all right. So then we took the bass, and then we had to go get another one, sign it up, and then we like switched it out. So that was pretty funny.
So there is a random bass that's sitting at a Hard Rock cafe that
in
has
Denver. Yeah, I haven't been back to see if it was still hanging there, but hopefully you'll see.
Oh my God, what a great story.
Now, is there something that you have artifact wise that's special to you for all your time working with Ozzy Osbourne?
I don't know. Weird. It's just a weird item. I mean, I got like posters and this and that, but I guess one of the items that I actually saved from the show was the pin that came out of like Ozzy's gun, his foam gun. So it was like the last, because I would always take that and fix that and play with that gun. So it was the last time I was able to pull that pin out. So it's like some weird little thing, but I was like, I kept it. You know, I got some other cooler stuff, but to me, that's like my cool thing, you know?
So you continue to work with the family even during the down years when the shows are not happening. So how far in advance do you get word that we want to do a big send off? We want to do a big show in Birmingham?
There was always like talk about it and stuff. And then like, since I'm out of the loop as far as like the office and stuff, like stuff will happen and then it'll be like, hey, wait a second. Wait. Oh, we're doing that already? Oh, okay, cool. So I didn't really know that like it was a fully official probably until like a month beforehand. And there was like, you know, and they had been talking about like this in about a year, you know. So I only knew, like, I heard whispers, but it was nothing like in concrete and like, oh, what's this? And why is this meeting happening in Aston Villa? Like, you know, what do you mean we're going to Aston Villa? And so like, and then it's like another thing. It's not like, oh, we didn't tell you. It's just more like, oh, we forgot to tell you. Ozzy's going to do the final show, you know, like, are you going to be around? You know, like, are you available?
Wow.
You know?
Yeah, forgot to tell you. Do you want to move in with the Osbournes?
Yeah.
Forgot to tell you. Yeah, we're gonna do one big giant send off. It's gonna be the greatest night in heavy metal history. Are you gonna be around? You gonna be available?
So hearing stories like that, how long have you been playing bass?
Yeah. Yeah, Chris relates to getting the word of what's going on last minute and being the last guy to hear about stuff. But you guys, so the show starts building up and then it becomes what it is. And then, you know, you're there. I mean, you're there for the I got the sense from everyone keeps talking about how you could feel it in the city of Birmingham that whole week. It felt like what was about to happen was in the air everywhere.
Yeah, well, the city did a real good job. We have this guy, we call him Steve. He's like the unofficial mayor of Birmingham, but he's been doing stuff with us since like 2006 in Birmingham to get like Ozzy's, name and everything, like, you know, recognized and stuff. So he got him like on the Birmingham Walk of Fame, and then they got like, so when they went to before the show, like Ozzy and Tony Geezer and Bill, they received these I think they're called like Peace Awards. So they got these medals and they got their names etched into the Birmingham, like into the building, like the city building, and there's only been like 50 names etched into this plate that they got etched into. So it was like a big deal for them. And then like they turned a bunch of the fountains purple for Sabbath. And they put all the posters, and they took the crown and they put a bunch of stuff on. They made like a walking tour so you could see like history of like Sabbath and stuff. And I think that's actually going to continue. Like they're going to make like a Sabbath week or something, that 4th of July week and stuff over there.
And you're working that night of the show, right? You're working?
Yeah.
So do you carve out time for yourself to just sit back and just feel what's happening?
Nah, it's just running around because my world changed. Like we were going to do like certain aspects of the show changed. So when I got there, I was like, oh, so the chair isn't going to stop. The chair isn't going to be here. It's going to be all the way over there. And we have to make sure like all the cords. So I got there, made sure stuff was right. And then it was also just making sure like Ozzy's all right in the dressing room, as far as like, because it's a day where like 900 people come into the dressing room to say, you know, hello and this and that. So I'm like, hey, do you want these people here? Do you not want these people here? But like once 1 or 2 get in or 3 get in, and then you know, it's kind of just like people go in, you know, like they just like, hey, it's James Hetfield, you know, what is he to say no, you know? So
hey, Ozzy.
Well, I did have I don't know what you call it, not the privilege of
unfortunate.
Robert Plant. So I was like at the O2, and like, we have the same booking agent in England. And so I see this guy walking down Robert Plant. I said, I know he's going to want to go into the room. And Ozzy's doing his rehearsing. So he does his warm up. So when he's doing his warm ups, he doesn't talk to anybody. So I do which I normally don't even do. He's doing his warm ups. I go in there and I'm like, And he's like, no. I'm like, okay. And I turned around. I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, Robin wants to see Ozzy before the show. And I was like, I said, I just asked, and he's doing his warm up. So he said, could you meet him after the show? And I was like, and then Robin Plant was like, you know what? I should probably warm up before shows and stuff. It probably help my voice.
I like how you were very diplomatic about it too. I was just
yeah.
like, no. He said that he would like to see you after the show. It's nice having people like you around to kind of massage some of the verbal diarrhea that comes out of us at times.
And the best part is that we have a mutual friend. So I'm good friends with Micro.
Yes, that's our drum tech.
Yeah. So he's Mr. Led Zeppelin. So that was the first person I called. I was like, dude, I had to shut your boy down from seeing Ozzy. I don't know where he thought he was just gonna roll up like that and stuff. And he's like,
which, by the way, Dave's talking about the gig that he had at that Birmingham show, the final show for Ozzy and Sabbath. And we got this great video that is making.
And this was the first exclusive interview with the Mystery Man. I haven't done any interviews until this one.
Yeah,
that's right.
Chris, you're not going to believe this, but this is an incredible story that's happening right now on the internet. So,
no one realized he was the true biggest winner of this Black Sabbath farewell concert. Due to Parkinson's disease, Ozzy could only perform for his fans while seated in a custom bat-themed wheelchair.
Yep.
Not only was he strapped in with safety harnesses, but there was also a mysterious man on stage who operated the wheelchair from behind Ozzy the entire time. Fans assumed he was just a safety crew member, failing to recognize that he was actually the concert's greatest beneficiary. To ensure Ozzy could complete the performance without incident, this man had to constantly monitor Ozzy's condition from behind the wheelchair. Most crucially, since Ozzy couldn't stand, he appeared almost corpse-like, so the man's role was to manipulate the wheelchair, making Ozzy move and appear alive. Ozzy himself would desperately try to push himself up from the wheelchair, even if he couldn't hold the position for more than a few seconds.
Here's my favorite
embodying
part.
the raw spirit of rock and roll till the very end. Ozzy promised this worker $100,000 for the show, along with a permanent role in his band's management team. Even if the band disbands after Ozzy's death, they guaranteed him alternative career support, a testament to Ozzy's loyalty to those who stood by him.
Congratulations. I mean, $100,000 to move a chair. My God. I'm so excited for you.
Oh, I was also the puppet master. You know, I had to make his arms and legs move. That was
And an option for another career opportunity. Man, that is one of the funniest pieces of fake news I've ever seen in my life.
Is that an AI voice that's on there too?
Oh, dude, these AI things are all over the place. Did you? I take offense to it, Dave. Like there was a AI thing that people kept posting, and I'm like, that's not Ozzy's voice. And
they have the one where it's like there's no Ozzy on his hand.
Yeah.
It's like weird.
And it's supposedly Ozzy right after he passed. And it's supposedly audio of him saying, "This is how I want it to go." And it's and it was making the rounds everywhere. And people, you look, I mean, my favorite thing was to look at the comments. And the first comment was always like, "You're an idiot. You're a fucking idiot if you believe this." And I loved seeing that people were calling it out, but it just bothered me that it got as far as it did. But yeah, so seeing, is that the first time you've ever been caught up in fake news?
That fake. Yeah, that to that degree, it was like hilarious because I was like, I sent it to Sharon and she was like laughing her ass off.
Yeah, there was a radio station a couple years ago who called me up because my name popped up on one of those "What Are They Worth" websites.
Yeah.
And there was some website that said I was worth $18 million. And they said, "Hey, do you want to call in to talk about this?" And I said, "Sure." And they said, "Hey, so we saw that you're worth $18 million." And I said, and I hate to say this, but that website is off by roughly $18 million.
Yeah.
I like, how do you even come up with a figure like that?
Mm-hmm.
But it's fun. When did you first get word that you were part of this fake story that was going around?
My buddy sent it. My buddy sent that to me, and he was like, "Hey, you'll check this out." And then I was like, "What?" And then it was hilarious.
So where were you when you got the news about Ozzy?
I was home here. Like I was in Ohio. I was actually out, and my buddy John from the office, he called me and he's like, "Go outside." And then, you know, you have those buddies that call and it's either really good news or really bad news. They never just fucking call to say like, "Hey, how you doing, bro? What's going on?" So it's always like, oh shit. So then he called, and not that I would like, I didn't think it would be this. He has like he always has some sort of dog some dog is going somewhere to get some sort of procedure done. So I thought it was gonna be like, you know, something happened with his dog, and then he's like, oh no, he's gone. And I was like, so I was just sad, you know, and then I was just kind of, that was it, you know.
Wasn't it shocking in that moment, or was it not shocking to you in that moment?
No, it was shocking because we had just done I stayed after we did the last show. We stayed for like a week, and Ozzy did a Comic-Con with him, Sharon, Ozzy, and Jack. They did signed autographs and took photos. Right. And he was having a good day, and he was chilling out, and he wasn't like, oh, doing like, oh, I don't want to do this, because he always likes to meet the fans and stuff like that. So he was having a cool day, laughing and hanging out. And then I seen him in the car, and I was like, all right, boss, I'll see you in a couple of weeks or something. Have a you did a great job at the show, and I'll see you. I'll see you when I see you. But I said eventually, I said you'll have to come back to LA.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then and that was it. So that's why it was like a total surprise. I know it's like, yes, he has some health issues and this and that, but it was also not to that point where you would think that he was that would happen.
Yeah. So when you first hear the news from your friend who worked he worked in the office for management.
Yeah. He's just we work together. Like basically, if you work there, if you're in management, you're on tour, you're like, you do everything. So he's like, I also like when John and I we did the projects together with going to England to pull all the Grammys and all that stuff and get that facilitated. So basically, he's like, he does all like the box sets and all that kind of stuff. So he does the office, and then when we have big projects, we all do that together and stuff. Me and him. So.
When you got the news, was there any one memory from the night of the final show that stood out to you, or was it just a lifetime of memories that hit you?
It was probably not at the show, but it was more of just happy that he was able to do the show, that he got the show off. It was more of an elation about that because he was always worried about it, and even, any sort of like, if like they said something about like his singing, it was more of like he got emotional as more than anything and stuff like that during the show. So he was, that's why he was like, oh, my voice. I was like, bro, I was like, as soon as I was like, everybody was crying and cracking with you. I was like, they love you. I said, they couldn't even hear it, bro, because they were singing so loud with you, but that was the thing. Like, that's what I loved about him is every night, regardless, he would go out there like it was his first show. He would be scared and like, not scared, but, nervous. And he's like, I want to give him a good show and stuff like that. And then as soon as he went out there, he'd be Ozzy, and he'd turn into Ozzy. And then it'd be awesome. And then for like that 2 hours, he's him, and nobody could tell him what to do, and he's controlling the show, So,
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I really appreciate you joining us and sharing those stories. It's crazy. I didn't know almost all of what you told me about how this all started and how it transitioned year after year. And I do know the question I keep asking you about, do you ever carve time out for yourself? I know that you carve time out for yourself on at least one evening, because I asked a mutual friend of mine, a mutual friend of ours, do you have any good stories about Big Dave? And a gentleman by the name of Fred Qualo said, oh, yeah.
He was with Black Label, so if it was a Black Label night, I don't know.
Can we pull up the text so we can, I got to go through. He sent me the longest response. You know what? I'm just going to read it off of my phone here. This story is absolutely amazing. I said, do you have any stories that you can share with me about?
Should I bring my wife is here? Should I let her listen to this story?
Sure. It's a wildly entertaining story. The first line is, I had moonshine that a fan gave me for working on their guitar. Do you already know where the story's going?
No, there's been a lot of moonshine guitar nights. So
okay. And then he says, ... It was the real deal. It was real moonshine. Anyways, Lemmy and I were drinking moonshine out of a mason jar. This is Fred talking, I was cleaning Zakk Wylde strings with grain alcohol in a solo cup. It looks like water. Big Dave comes over and says, what are you guys doing? I said, we're drinking moonshine. Dave said, that ain't real moonshine. So Lemmy hands him the jar.
Mm-hmm.
Big Dave takes a big swig. It goes down the wrong pipe and he starts coughing and choking. He looks on my box, my work box, and sees what he thinks is water and takes a big chug of 190 proof grain alcohol and he starts puking instantly. The whole time, Lemmy hasn't flinched. Lemmy is leaning on my road box, slowly shaking his head. Dave recovers and says, "You guys are assholes," and walks off. We told him it was real moonshine. Lemmy looks at me and says, "I've seen some fucked up shit in my time, but that was really fucked up." Years go by. I'm at the Revolver Golden Gods Award, and I see a friend of mine who sees Lemmy and says, "Oh man, I would love to meet Lemmy." And I said, "Yeah, let's go talk to him." I actually toured with him once on the bill with Ozzy on Ozfest. So I walk over to Lemmy. It's been 10, maybe 12 years later. I walk up and I say, "Hey, Lemmy, I don't know if you remember me." Lemmy cuts me off and says, "That's still one of the most fucked up things I've ever seen." He still remembered Big Dave vomiting all over everything on a work box 12 years later.
Yep.
Dude, I don't know.
I actually feel proud of that, and now I feel like I have a story to tell now, Thank you for letting me know about that one.
And as someone who grew up in Kentucky, that moonshine, it probably went down the right the right pipe. That's just how it behaves.
All I can think
It was an apple pie moonshine.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't a boutique mason jar.
All I can think of is if I'm Big Dave, the pride I would have that all that stored information Lemmy has about World War. What's this guy's name?
This is Tom Jones. His name is Cheeto.
Cheeto.
Cheetos.
What's up, pussycat? Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Cheeto, on a break from his stint at the local Chippendales down the street, is here to have a little smoke break. Which, by the way, Dave, can we mention what you're doing now with helping out animals out there? You guys have a 501c?
Yeah, so we got the info here. The wife wrote it down for me. So the enchantedanimalrescue.com, if you guys want to see, that's our website for the rescue.
enchantedanimalrescue.com.
And then we also have an Instagram, the Enchanted Church.
Enchanted Church on Instagram.
And that's my wife's Instagram, actually. She does stuff over there, some artsy stuff, because I live in a 200-year-old church. That's what you're seeing in the background here.
Wow.
So that's what you do with your Ozzy buddy. You go out to Ohio and you buy a 200-year-old church so you can get away from LA.
I love it. And
basically what we do is we do the rescue here, but I also have a store with my wife. It's called Deceased Vintage. So we have like old creepy stuff and 50s, 60s, and 70s stuff like that. And but we've sold a couple skulls and some bones and stuff out here. So that's kind of we haven't strayed too far from the Osbournes.
Nice. What city is that store in?
It's in McCutcheonsville, Ohio.
Okay.
So, but if you just go Deceased Vintage, we're on Facebook and Instagram there, and we ship. So if you see anything cool you like, make it happen.
There we go.
Dave, I got to tell you,
needs food. What's up?
I got to tell you, man, I stop and talk to every dog that I see, and I've never wanted to hang out with a dog more than I want to hang out with that guy right now. That is the coolest dog I've ever seen. Oh man. I hope that dog has its own Instagram. I like that the dog, you just let the dog do a David Lee Roth moment.
He does. It's actually My Baby Cheeto.
Yeah. On Instagram, My Baby Cheeto?
Yeah, but it's funny because we did a couple with our Deceased Vintage. We did a couple of horror conventions and paranormal conventions. And we had like the Jason guy, Van Hoder, came over. He's like, "Oh, dude, I love him." And he's like, "Let me take photos." And like we had like, who's it? The new creepy exorcist. The little kids came over and taking pictures and stuff. So, and then what's the name? The ultimate Linda Blair took the photo with Cheeto. He was really happy that day.
Oh, I love it. Well, dude, thank you for answering all those questions. And I have so many more now because of that. So I'd love to have you on again to share some stories.
Yeah. I'll try. I want to earn a jacket one day. So
yeah,
there we go. Get his punch cards today.
Cheeto wants a jacket too. So he wants to know how many for a dog. Is it 5 for a dog?
Yeah, Cheeto can have a jacket right now. I love Cheeto. I want to hang out with Cheeto. Dude, you've lived such an interesting life, man. Chris, you have a question?
I was going to say, I think we just found a third host. It's now Beardo and Weirdo and Cheeto.
Cheeto. Oh my God. I'm going to Cheeto's Instagram as soon as we get done with this. Dave, thanks for joining us. We'll send everybody out your way to check out what you guys are doing out there. It's amazing work that you guys are doing.
Yep. So yeah, that's it. We got the 9 other dogs, but Cheeto's the only one that gets on because he's the coolest.
Absolutely.
I love Cheeto. Well, thank you for your time, Dave. We'll see you again soon down the road. And
before I go, you have to work on the Ozzy impression if you're going to plan on using it.
I know. You know what?
Simmons is spot on. The Ozzy, we need some work on that Ozzy impersonation.
I hadn't done Ozzy in a few weeks, and I knew as soon as I opened my mouth, I was like, "That's not Ozzy. That's not Ozzy. That's not Ozzy." I'll dial it in before the next time you come back on. And go Jets! I actually think of you when the Jets do win from time to time. And I'm like, well,
we'll see.
Dave's out there. Yeah, he's out there smiling somewhere.
In typical Jets fashion, our starting offensive lineman is already out for the season.
Yep. Oh yeah. Well, go Jets, go, and I'll see you next time. Thank you, Dave.
All right, see you guys.
All right, I'll see you.
Bye.